Hi, everyone. This is Kumar Data Train with Agile Meridian, and we are here live, myself and Glenn, talking about the third letter in the XSCALE framework. What does C stand for, Glenn?
C stands for continuous throughput.
Continuous throughput. And you want to take us through, what is this? What does it mean to have a continuous throughput mindset, or what does it mean in the context of XSCALE?
I would start by talking about the traditional old-fashioned way that's not continuous throughput. And that is where things are organized into a hierarchy. Things are broken down. You have organizations which have departments. You have work that is spread across teams. And then even within a team, you have work that is divvied out to various team members, typically in something like a Gantt chart. You also have costs that are broken down across departments as well. So, but let's drill into that for a little bit. Have you ever worked in a situation like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not a fun place to be, as an individual contributor or maybe part of a team. When you work in an organization or in a structure where everything's planned out ahead of time, the impact on the person, the individual, can be quite dramatic, right? So in a structure like that, as an individual, you're handed work. Hey, Kumar, go do this. And you do that work, and then you hand it off to someone else. And you're not sure why you're doing the work. You're not sure what the impact is of the work that you just did. You just do the work. And I think early in my career as a developer, I was in an organization like that, and I was handed work. I was said, okay, here's your work. You've got 3 months to do it. And they gave me a set of requirements, and I went off and did it. And I didn't understand why I was doing it. And so I sort of, gold plated it, added features that maybe weren't asked for. And then I handed it off to whoever was going to test it. And then, a few months later, they would come back and they would ask me questions. What is this? Why did you add this feature here for? And of course, by then I'd been given some other task, doing something else. Like, I don't remember. Let me go look at it. Right. So I think the impact is that the work that you do has less meaning. You're not as engaged in the work that you're doing. And even though you may be part of a team, I use that term very lightly, you're not really part of a team. You're basically a part of a group of individuals, teams of one. And so when you work in that manner, it tends to isolate you from your teammates. And there's little collaboration around the end product, right? So it can be a very thankless type of an environment.
Have you ever worked as a manager in an environment like that?
Yeah. So when you think about managing a team, I've said this on other videos. I used to run restaurants, and so my natural inclination is to get people to work together. So my natural style is to be a facilitative servant leader. But I have worked on teams where the manager was anything but facilitative or supportive as a leader. And I do know that this manager these types of folks, they don't intend to be that way, right? It's just what they've been trained to do. And it must be very frustrating for them because they have to be the brain for the 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 people that are on the team. They have to coordinate everything. They have to plan everything out. They have to hand tasks out to people. They have to ensure that the costs are in line, right? They're not burning too much budget too fast. They have to make sure that all the project elements are getting done on time. They have to coordinate everything. And so that's a huge load on the manager.
I was just going to say, that sounds like a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And it can lead to burnout. I mean, some people do okay with that, but I would say that it's a false sense of security when you have that kind of responsibility thrust on you, because you're not utilizing the people that you have working for you to their fullest potential.
Yep.
They are disengaged. They're not collaborating. You have to be the sort of the conduit through which all communications go through. And if you're not there, you can't take a vacation, right? So it has to feel pretty awful working in an environment where there's a lack of collaboration, where there's a lack of a shared vision, a shared mission, things like that.
And in terms of costs, each of those different breakdowns has their own little budget. So again, a lot of work there, and you have to stick within your budget. So there's a lot of control and rigidity there as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm working with a client now, and they're behind, and so they just keep adding people to the team, quote unquote team. And so this team of is supposed to be an agile team. They have like 20 plus people on it. There's nothing agile about that when you have that many people trying to, and then having the manager and the scrum master / project manager try to manage it all, right? And so when you talk about continuous throughput, there is no continuous throughput. The throughput is in fits and starts, right? The batches are much larger and are riddled with defects because, again, it was planned by someone and executed by multiple people who aren't talking to each other. They're not sharing any information, right? And so when this product is finally released to a testing team, which, in this case, testing teams are often separate, right? Siloed organization. They find all kinds of issues because guess what? That's what they're paid to do. They're paid to find all the defects, right? And those defects weren't prevented in the first place. And so there is no continuous throughput. It's a very haphazard throughput. It's a very unpredictable throughput. And that's not good for business.
It's not. There's also a danger. There is, some people call it a law. Brooks was the first person who found it. Adding people to a late project just makes the project later because you have to go through a big training cycle.
Right.
And overhead associated with more people as well. So yeah, generally don't do that. Cut the work, don't add people.
That's right.
So I've tried to identify a number of issues with this approach. You've talked about a couple of them. Engagement is actually a really good one. That was not on my list. So I'll just quickly go through this. Heavyweight coordination. We didn't really talk that much about discovery and feedback. In spite of your best effort, there is always discovery. And what are you going to do about that? Are you just going to barge ahead with doing things the old way, or are you going to incorporate that and make a course adjustment, which of course will increase the value to the customer and perhaps reduce bugs? The other thing is technical debt. Over time, technical debt, it's a reality. We need to accept that. Things just evolve in unexpected ways. And if you don't pay attention to that, it will grow exponentially and eventually it will paralyze you. So it's very important to not ignore that. And traditional approaches have tended to ignore or at best delay technical debt and continuous improvement, improving practices. Things are changing all the time. You want to go and take advantage of that. There's an unfortunate tendency as well when we get into a cost crunch, which, let's face it, happens from time to time. The approach is on cutting expenses, cutting staff, cutting. And that sometimes is necessary, but you want to do that as the last possible option. And I'll explain a better way in a moment. We talked a little bit about hierarchy. Pardon me, you're going to say something?
Yeah, just that, when it comes to tech debt, at the team level, I mentioned this, as something that people can really feel. The people on the team feel it, right? Tech debt can be very debilitating because it's hard to make any progress because of all the things that they have to work around as a team. Now, this is a software team, but technical debt can manifest on any type of a team, a legal team, a marketing team. It doesn't matter, right? And it's just this notion that you're taking shortcuts for some short-term gain, but those shortcuts, they accumulate over time. And so when you need to make changes to whatever it is that you're maintaining or building, you have to kind of work around all the shortcuts that you took in the past. And so to your point, for teams that are focused on continuous throughput, they are cleaning up after themselves all the time. They're collaborating with each other, using the feedback they get from their customers to clean up their work, whatever form their work takes, right? And so the work product that they deliver on a hopefully continuous basis is of high quality. It's delighting the customers. It's creating a virtuous cycle of referrals where customers love the products or services so much that they refer other people into the network. And I think you were going to get to that next.
I was going to get to that, but you mentioned engagement. That's a great way to engage the team. Hey, look, team, we've got a problem here. We took a shortcut before, but maybe we can do a better job. So that engages the creative juices, and the team feels that. So at least in my experience, when I've had a chance to pay down technical debt, that feels good.
It sure does. One thing that we should mention is XSCALE is really a way to extend the manifesto, the Agile manifesto, to beyond the team and the individual and the team. And XSCALE, this principle, or I would say this letter, continuous throughput, really extends it beyond the team. So we've been talking a lot about the team, but at an organizational level, this works as well. So continuous throughput at an organizational level, what would that look like? And if you're asking me what it would look like under a traditional way, it would be, again, fits and starts, right? You're not delivering what customers need when they need it.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of a more haphazard throughput with value that's, largely, it could be irrelevant to the customer because what they need, they didn't get when they needed it. And so they've moved on,
mm-hmm.
right? They found someone else to get the service or product from.
And
so in a continuous throughput company that embraces it, they're always looking at what's most valuable to the customer and delivering those things to them in a way that they can learn from, they can get feedback from, and improve the product even further.
I think you've said it very well. Value to the customer is actually invisible in the traditional model.
Yeah.
We have stuff, we have to do it. We don't know if it's valuable or not. And when the customer says, I don't want that, that's not what I'm looking for, there's no place to go and do anything about it. You have to start all over again. So let's go and switch to continuous throughput and change our focus there. The critical point, you've alluded to it, is a focus on flow and delivering value to the customer. You said it well, delighting the customer, engaging the team. Traditionally, it's not even clear where the value is. Under the continuous throughput approach, there's a relentless focus on finding the highest value and delivering it. There will be feedback. That feedback is welcomed, and if it's a high value, if that particular item is high value, you would do that immediately. There's a really important point around cost. In order to go and it's a little indirect. There's the chart. We focus on increasing flow. And thereby revenue by constantly focusing on the bottleneck. And in an earlier talk, you mentioned it, and I think it's good phrasing, growing the top line, growing revenue, as opposed to cutting costs. So you look for bottlenecks, you find a bottleneck, you remove it. That increases the flow of work, increases the delivery of value to the customer, makes the product more valuable, you get more sales.
That's right. Yeah. So if you look at this chart, this portion of the chart here represents your costs, and the bottlenecks are of course represented where the slope of the line starts to flatten a little bit, on any of these lines, and it creates sort of a bottleneck there, or the gaps between the various things start to shrink. That's indicative of a bottleneck somewhere either before or after where it occurs. And so the idea is that yes, we need to do whatever we can to eliminate the bottleneck so that we deliver value on a consistent and predictable manner.
I would like to put it even stronger. Our job is to eliminate the bottleneck, and there's only one at a given point. Focus on that, eliminate it, and then re-examine things. There will be another bottleneck somewhere else. Focus on that. But whatever you do, don't work on improving the flow of something that's not a bottleneck. Well, in fact, if you do that, you'll make the bottleneck worse. You'll create a bigger log jam by having the logs flow to the jam up more quickly. Get rid of the log jam, get the flow. The analogy of a river is a powerful one here.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I was thinking about logs flowing on a river, and you're right. You clear the bottleneck somewhere, it's going to jam up somewhere else later on. But you fix where the bottleneck is now to maintain the flow of the river.
Right.
And ultimately, in this chart, where would you say the bottleneck is?
If you can just indulge me for a second, chopping down more trees and jamming them into the river is actually going to make the problem worse. So don't do that. Don't optimize the upstream flow or put more traffic on. You've got a bottleneck, fix it. And there's always a bottleneck somewhere.
I like that analogy. You know, so if you have a river full of trees and it's blocked, it's bottlenecked, adding more trees isn't going to get trees to the finish line. It's just going to get more blocked.
Exactly.
Yeah. Where would you say the bottleneck is on this chart?
We have a problem at the top line. Revenue is flattening, and this is actually an important point. Eventually, all products mature. Customers are happy. Hey, it's good enough. I like it. You've got a team doing wonderful work. Give them something else to do. Bring in a major new feature or bring in a new product. Apple is of course famous for this. It's really important to be mindful. This is actually a nice example of an S curve. It started slow, it grew very, very quickly, and now it's tapering off. That's the time to pivot.
Well, you ought to be pivoting somewhere over here. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but when it starts to flatten, the slope of this line starts to flatten, it's time to think about, okay, are we, we have this great team. They're actually working as a team. They're collaborating. They're sharing information. They're sharing their learning. There's a flow of learning within this team and within this organization, right? Because this represents multiple products, possibly, or maybe it's one product. Regardless, at this point, this organization needs to start thinking about, all right, what do we work on next? What's our next product or our next service or enhancement to this existing product or service?
I would put it even more strongly than that. There was something that was of high value. That's great. Obviously, keep working on that, but you want to have a couple of things ramped up. You want to have a couple of logs ready to throw in the river once things start to taper off. So you want to do this in advance.
Absolutely. I want to see if there's a laser pointer. Here we go. So you want to start over here somewhere and start your next cycle and have that start to ramp up your next S curve, like over here. Right. So to your point, you want to be, as an organization, you want to be very proactive in communicating the vision for whatever the next thing is, the next product, the next service, and enable and align your teams towards that. If your teams are all aligned, they can sort of hit their target better.
In fact, I would say that this actually is illustrative of a problem. The team should have been redirected earlier. This is too late. You do want to have these stacked S curves, so it does look like a continuous, 45-degree with a bit of waves in here. But yeah,
right. So you probably want to stop developing new features for this, like right around here.
Exactly.
And start implementing whatever the new thing is that takes its place, or the new set of enhancements that takes its place.
Exactly.
Right. All right. Anything we didn't cover yet today on this topic?
One of the things that's unique about, actually, if you can bring that chart back.
Sure.
One of the things that's unique about XSCALE, or I should say, is the first time I've seen this, is bringing finance into it, revenue and sales, and looking and adding that on top of the costs of the various development phases, development, testing, integration, and so on and so forth. I think this is a powerful way of looking at things, and relatively unique in my experience. But it's also very critical. A simple diagram like this continuous flow diagram can be extended to add finance to it, and focus and have an emphasis on the top line rather than the bottom line. So many organizations miss this. Work starts to taper off. They disband the team, or even worse, they lay people off. One of your people always talk about the greatest asset of a company is their people. Well, my goodness, at least keep them busy. Give them valuable work to do. Don't lay them off.
Yeah.
And a model like this illustrates that and gives you the cue that, hey, it's time to go and do something different. We mentioned Apple. Apple is famous for doing this, pivoting from one product to another, constantly going in and looking for the next great thing. And products and always taper off. So you need to be ready to pivot when that happens.
Yeah, I would say Apple of the 2010s, 2000s was like this. Today, maybe not as much. They've become much more established, and their product cycle is it's more evolutionary than revolutionary.
I agree. I agree with that. They had a very visionary leader who was famous for
Yeah.
that. Their sales are still growing. Their market cap is still growing. Look at their sales.
They're an incredibly profitable company. It's just I think that their model is a little different than it was before, where they were cannibalizing their existing product base with new products. But that was the strategy: is to grow their customer base to the point where they were held captive by all these great products and services. That was part of the Apple ecosystem.
I do notice that most of Apple's competitors are having, 5-figure layoffs. Apple isn't. I'm just saying.
They're starting to lay off some, but not to the extent that their competitors are.
Yeah, and they're trying to do the graceful way of
Yeah.
Offering them other jobs and a chance to go and look for other things.
Of course,
It's critical to maintain engagement to do
Yeah.
that. When you have to do that, we have to be realistic. Sometimes you have to do that, but you really need to do it in a way that maintains staff engagement. It doesn't make everybody feel like they're going to be they're up next.
Absolutely. Well, any closing thoughts on this topic of continuous throughput?
I think we covered it off.
I think just in summary, I would say that continuous throughput from an XSCALE perspective is really focusing on this. How can we grow top line sales? How can we continually deliver value to our customers and in the process engage our workforce to be aligned to what it is that we're delivering, how we're delivering it, and that should result in certainly a more happy, engaged workforce and more happy and engaged customers.
And from a financial perspective, look at this rather than at costs.
Right. Well, costs are important, but just focusing on costs with a declining sales number is probably the wrong strategy.
Exactly.
Right. It's okay, we have these fixed costs. How can we best utilize them to increase top line sales?
Yep.
Right. All right. Awesome. This is a great session. Thanks for joining, Glenn. And hopefully you enjoyed this, and we'll see you all in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.